its origins hatched in Slavic folklore, the mythical Firebird's journey westward has only enhanced its avant lore. Finding sanctuary amid sands both timeless and perpetual, the allure of the bird's plumage radiant, eyes hypnotic, talons just, and song enchanting prove a presence magical for those who respect its powers, and a harbinger dark for those who seek to tame its flight. In tales of yore, times bygone, the firebird protects its nest, the hue of its brilliant feathers, a guiding glow of belief, of renewal, of light, of home. A narrative rooted in myth, such powers, such imaginations are today realized with a tale of light and freeze. For the firebird and those who embrace its journey, it is a tale of seasons reborn, a fable actualized by the forge of steel blade and wooden implement, a legend which grows by roar and score. It is a story of fire and ice.
Greetings, friends, and Firebirds fans, and welcome to the Desert Suns Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. Coming to you from Palm Desert, California, a mere Yanni Newman right circle wrist rocket away from the Birds' home ice of Acrisure Arena. I'm your host, Judd Spicer, fourth season of Coachella Valley Firebirds hockey, fourth season, in turn, of Fire and Ice. Appreciate you tuning in as we get to the nitty and the gritty and the home stretch of the American Hockey League season. Not alone on this episode, got a great guest for you upcoming. Stanley Cup champion, Hockey Hall of Fame netminder, and the Firebirds analyst for both television and radio, the great Grant Fuhr, going to be joining me here shortly. Prior to speaking with Grant, let us first recognize partner in crime for this fourth season of Birds hockey, the Desert Sun newspaper. You can find it online at desertsun.com. Adept and adroit and exciting and enthralling Firebirds coverage, 200 feet of it all season long. To that effect, reporter Andrew John going to be joining me as an epilogue to this episode for the Desert Shootout segment. Look forward, as always, to that visit with Andrew. He's been doing some other podcasts, by the way. He did a Seattle Kraken podcast. I think it was this week, maybe last week. Can't remember which one. There are a lot of them, but he did a great job. Oh, and he managed to get in a nice Fire and Ice plug along the way. Again, check out all the Desert Suns coverage, local news, sports, Firebirds at desertsun.com. Been informing our valley for a near century, yonder 1927. Or heck, just go out and buy a physical newspaper. People still do that, by the way. Presenting sponsor of this endeavor, also right here in sunny Palm Desert, California, Desert Willow Golf Resort, home to the Mountain View and Firecliff courses, respectively. Get your tee times online at desertwillow.com. So many compliments, so many reactions, so many accolades following Desert Willow. I think I mentioned this on a recent episode, but this is a really good one. Among all the honors that the course and property receives on a seemingly monthly basis, Golf Pass, NBC's Golf Pass, Reader's Choice for 2026. Yeah, they put the Firecliff course in the top 50 in the country, 5-star rating. Hey, when you're poking around desertwillow.com, making those tee times, by the way, be sure to check out the awesome and on-site Palm Desert Golf Academy for all your swing lesson knowledge and tutelage needs. They got all manner of individual instruction, short game clinics, golf schools that go on for a couple days. Again, you want to check it out at desertwillow.com. All right, let's lace it on up, Firebirds flock, to this episode's Firebirds Freeze Frame segment. And ice action isn't limited to Acrisure Arena alone. Hockey fans, you're seeking some pregame drinks, post-game toasts, you need only look to the high desert, where our Firebirds friends at both the 29 Palms Beer Company and the Ground Squirrel, GRND, SQRL. They're serving up some awesome eats and incredible beers in downtown 29 Palms. Ground Squirrel, you're going to love it there, friends. It sports an awesome gastropub-style scratch-made menu matched with a rotating list of craft beers. Those seeking a potent power play, hey, you skate it right on down the street to the 29 Palms Beer Company, By the way, I think they brought back the Amboy Road IPA. Super tasty. That's on tap again. Right down the street from the Ground Squirrel 29 Palms Beer Company, they're brewing up their own phenomenal beers right on site. And oh, by the way, they're televising every Birds game, whether it be home or away. You're a desert local, you're seeking a fun new scene, maybe you're a guest to the Coachella Valley, you're up there exploring Joshua Tree, Pioneer Town, playing cowboy. Whether you're celebrating a Birds win or drowning your sorrows after a tough loss, you lace up the hospitality in 29 Palms, where both the Ground Squirrel and the 29 Palms Beer Company, those are proving your high desert hockey homes. All right, Firebirds friends. 50 games down, 22 to go, as offered earlier in this episode. We are reaching the home stretch of this fourth season of Firebirds hockey. Record of 27, 18, and 5 currently places the Firebirds fifth place in the ever-competitive Pacific Division. Boys coming back into town, doing so after a bit of a funky road trip. Went 1-2, of course, split those games with Colorado on the back end of the road trip. That was preceded by a tough loss to a Bakersfield team that, yeah, they scored a lot of goals, but the boys did relinquish a 3-0 lead, ultimately losing 4-3 to the Condors in that game. But I like the comeback. Came back right away and shut out Colorado 2-0 before falling in the ladder of the back-to-back. Boys coming to Palm Desert, returning to Palm Desert, I should say, this Thursday, February 26th, playing the Henderson Silver Knights in their Funky Tron helmets. That is a 6:30 p.m. puck drop. Henderson currently above 500, still in 8th place in the Pacific Division. You know they're going to come out tough. They're going to be fighting for that 7th and final playoff spot. Boys got to respond. This Saturday, February 28th, Coachella Valley Firebirds at home versus Bakersfield, the aforementioned Condors. That is a 6 p.m. start. Also, Cancer Awareness Night. That is being observed at Acrisure Arena this Saturday, February the 28th. Boys then hit the road to Henderson at Henderson next Wednesday, March 4th. That is a 7 p.m. start before coming back for a double dip against what I think is safe to say the lowly Wranglers of Calgary, currently in 9th place. Those games taking place on Saturday, March 7th at Acrisure Arena, followed by a quick back-to-back turnaround Sunday, March 8th. Per the players, well, all manner of things to observe here. Got some guys that are returning. J.R. Avon, forward, frontliner. He's been out for a couple months. He came back to the Birds on that recent road trip, as did netminder Nikke Koko. Trust we'll be talking about Nikke a little bit in this upcoming visit with Hall of Fame netminder Grant Fuhr. Not currently appearing for the Firebirds, David Goyette. David made some national news, and not necessarily for the right reasons. Currently amidst a 20-game suspension for the American Hockey League for taking a substance that he wasn't supposed to. David released his own statement to that effect, saying that he did not knowingly put anything in his body, did not knowingly, and I'm paraphrasing here. Sorry, David, that I'm not reading this your social media post verbatim, but he said he did not knowingly or intentionally put anything in his body to give him an unfair advantage. Nonetheless, that 20-game suspension now well underway, and I very much believe that includes not just the games, but all Firebirds official activities, including practices. Should have mentioned, maybe I should have led with this one, I almost buried the Danish lead after a fine Olympic performance for Denmark, although Denmark did not do very well, just winning one of their 4 games. Forward Oscar Fisker Molgaard did avail himself in a very, very fine way with 3 points for Team Denmark in the Olympics. When the Birds get back to the ice this Thursday night against Henderson, very much, well, what should I say, hope? Should I say trust? Should I say both? We want to see Oscar Fisker Molgaard back in a Birds jersey as CV returns to the Acrisure Arena rink this Thursday night. Let me toss a few stats and stat leaders for you, in this Firebirds freeze frame segment. Logan Morrison continues to have an exemplary season, leads the team with 49 points thus far into the year. That includes a team-high 24 goals paired with 25 assists. That scoring total of 49 thus far. Good for 5th in the American Hockey League. Right behind him, the Red Rocket also having an excellent year for the Birds. Frontliner Jagger Firkus with 48 points, matching 19 goals with a team-high 29 assists, places Jagger 7th in the American Hockey League. The Red Rocket been red hot of late with points in 7 of his past 9. Tyson Jognoth, along with Jagger, of course, one of our two All-Stars this season. Young Tyson with 34 points into the year thus far, 6 goals matched with 28 assists. He is tied for fourth among all defensemen for scoring in the entire American Hockey League. I've been remiss, friends, because I haven't mentioned him among our scoring leaders. He is not Yanni Newman because he has played just 22 games for the Birds thus far into the year, but he's got 20 points in those 20 games, 15 goals and 5 assists. Yanni has goals in 8 of his last 10, and he's been lighting it up for CV since he came back to the team from Seattle on New Year's Eve. Celebrated that night, continue to celebrate him for as long as we can enjoy his services. Yanni Newman, red hot in his 22 games for the Firebirds this season. Turn to the netminders, as mentioned. Young Nike Coco has been back in the net. Did so on the road in that recent road trip. Nika now 11-7-2 on the year, goals against of 3.26, save percentage of .897. Victor Osman 12-11-3 on the year, 2.78 goals against with a save clip of .907. Jack LaFontaine, recent guest, played so well in what was a short stint, or at least abbreviated stint, or spot starts for the Birds. He has recently been reassigned Kansas City since Nike's return. So enjoyed speaking with Jack, visiting with Jack. Such a unique guy, great talent, great personality, interesting career arc to be sure for Jack, but undoubtedly talented between the pipes. Curious to see, of course, where his career is going to take him next. In the interim, no doubt that he's going to continue to flourish in the ECHL for those Kansas City Mavericks. All right, dudes, all that offered, all that preface, and thank you, by the way, to the Ground Squirrel and 29 Palms Beer Company for sponsoring that Firebirds Freeze Frame segment. Let us now turn our attentions to the visit with the Hall of Famer and a Birds TV and radio analyst, Grant Fuhr. All right, Firebirds Vlog. My guest on this episode requires little introduction, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. He's a native of Spruce Grove, Alberta, 5-time Stanley Cup champion, 6-time NHL All-Star, 1998 winner of the Vezina Trophy as the NHL's top goaltender. His 403 career wins are good for 14th all-time, and a deserved member of the Hockey Hall of Fame elected in 2003. In time since, among many other endeavors, we've enjoyed his work as the Firebirds analyst for both TV and radio. Welcome Grant Fuhr to the Fire and Ice podcast. Hello, Grant.
How are you, Judd?
I'm doing well, sir. Always a pleasure. I'm going to start, if it's okay with you. One of the things that I left off of your bio is that you're a fine golfer, and despite the fact that I kind of promised, I half promised the listeners that I wouldn't talk about my own golf game, but you're a fine player, avid golfer. You love Desert Willow. I love Desert Willow. You have your event there. You're a competitor. So I got to start with this, just because I got your time and I got you on. I've got a legitimate event that I am preparing for in about a month, and this is an event. It's way above my pay grade, but I'm preparing on a near daily basis for in the hole competitive legitimate golf, where I'll be playing against dozens of people that are scratched and way better than me. What do you suggest should be my main focus of preparation?
Probably short game. I found that I started to compete again a little bit this year, and I found that tournament-wise, that was the hardest thing to get to come back, was the short game. And that's where you save the most strokes.
Okay. I like it, and that's where a lot of the focus has been. Did some greenside bunker before our chat today, and also have been, the guys that I play with, or the gals. I mean, we have a generous circle of friendship, so we pick up those 3-footers. But I have been spending a little extra time on my 3 and 4 foot putts.
It's funny how they grow in the tournament time.
The hole seems so much smaller all of a sudden for in the hole golf.
Well, you know what it is? Most people don't hit the 3 and 4 footers. They get in that circle of friendship and they just pick them up, or people give them to you, and then you're getting ready for tournament play, and all of a sudden you're looking at 3-footers that you would normally pick up, and they mean a lot.
They start to add up, absolutely, over the course of 18 holes. There was one in the whole tournament I played where I didn't practice or properly prepare for those putts, and I think I missed three of them. And it scared me. I promised myself for any ensuing competitive tournament I was going to play that I was going to log hours and make a little circle around the hole, just continually seeing that thing go in the cup.
Oh yeah, well, I went and bought a well putt mat so that I could actually do it at home and practice for it. The first tournament I got ready for, I worked on the long game, I worked on the driver, and I skipped the short game part of it. And then I found out that all the strokes I was giving away happened to be in the short game. So we're in a little rebuild of the short game right now.
All right, I'll digress on the golf, but I appreciate the advice and I appreciate the counsel. Let us still talk about competition before we get to some Firebird stuff, both on and off the ice. I do want to get your impression on the Olympics. I didn't talk about it at all preceding the interview on this episode. I think you probably would have preferred a different result in the gold medal game, but I just want to get your broad overall view on how this Olympics in Milan played out in your eyes.
I think the hockey side of it was fabulous. I mean, you look at the women's, yeah, we would have liked Canada to come out on top on both, but you also want good games. So the fact that both gold medal games, the women's, the men's, went into overtime tells you that it's great hockey. And it was fun to watch. I enjoyed every minute of it. So that's what you're looking for. Yeah, we'd like to see Canada come out on top. I'm still a good Canadian, but at the same time, I want to see a good game. And both games I thought were fabulous.
Yeah, I would agree. Obviously, a couple of golden goals to get it done for the U.S. in both men's and women's. The intensity in both of those games are basically across the semifinals for both genders. I mean, can you compare the intensity of that game? Certainly, I thought for the gold medal games, respectively, in each, is that intensity measured the same as the Stanley Cup final?
I think it does. It's just the finals dragged out over the course of 7 games instead of just a one game winner take all. So you get 7 games of that atmosphere and that kind of caring. So I think that's the fun part about playoffs. Yeah, it's a long run, but at the same time, in a long run like that, when you get to the finals, everybody's throwing whatever they've got left in their bodies out there. And you can see it as the last 20 games of a season, the pace starts to go up, everything starts to go up. And I love that time of hockey.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Was there anything, either men's or women's, that you were watching, whether it be a player, whether it be a specific country, maybe even a singular play that really surprised you or knocked your socks off or totally impressed you?
I think the goaltending, I thought the goaltending was outstanding through it. And you look at Damian Cara that played for Italy. I thought he was outstanding. Obviously, Connor Helbuck was phenomenal. I thought both goalies in the women's game were outstanding. I thought Jordan Binnington played very well. So everybody kind of stepped up, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, and I would agree. And as what I look at as the centerpiece of this Olympics, it paid off. All the expectation and all the anticipation of it being entertaining for both men's and women's, and we got the gold medal games respectively. I think that most people wanted to see for both genders.
Well, I think everybody wanted to see the Canada US battle. You go back to Four Nations and how entertaining that was. So I think everybody in the men's side wanted to see Canada US. I think everybody kind of expected in the women's game it was going to be Canada US. And if you look back on the course of this year, the US women kind of had the upper hand on Canada all year long. So the fact that the gold medal game was close and went to overtime and just shows you how close the teams really are. You look at Canada and the US and the men's side of it, again, very close. Overtime settles it. So you can't ask for more than that.
Now, and on the women's side, I mean, that has become now over some time one of the great rivalries, really, in all of sport, with one of the two nations winning the gold in every Olympics since women's hockey was introduced to the Olympics.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, normally when they play lead up games and series going into the Olympics, it's been kind of a 50-50 between Canada and the US. This year, the US kind of were a little bit more dominant. So you weren't sure what it was going to turn out to in a gold medal game. But you put gold medal on the line between the two countries, pretty sure you're going to get blessed with some good hockey.
Had a few former Firebirds participating in the Olympics, Grant, and one, of course, current Firebird who availed himself extremely well, Oscar Fisker Molgaard. The Danes didn't. I thought they could be a sneaky good team. They had a tough draw to try to, get out of the group and get that bye or to get past The playoff round. And they just had a bunch of tough games. I thought they might have had a little easier road. They could have won more than one game. But Oscar had 3 points for himself, including a goal. I don't know if you had opportunity to watch him play. If you did or you didn't, what do you anticipate that experience is going to do for him as he comes back to the Coachella Valley?
I think it's going to do wonders for him. It's going to be great for his confidence. I thought he had a really good Olympics. I thought he's been really good when he was up with Seattle. He's a guy that's definitely destined for the NHL. You can see his hockey IQ. You see how well he sees the ice, that he's always got himself in the right position. And it carried through the Olympics. Again, saw the ice very well, got himself in the right position. And the more that they put on his plate, he seems to adjust to it. So he's going to be a good pro.
Yeah, then the Danes did put a lot on his plate. He was one of the key pieces of that team, and that team did not look bad. I mean, that team looked strong. I think they just had a few tough draws in their opponents, but I agree entirely with Oscar. He appears to have all the makings of a future NHL player, and part of that is the progression. This is what we want to see here in the American League. We want to see these guys get better. We want to see them gain that confidence. We want to see their skills grow. And if I were to pick, I'm not going to name all the names, but even 5 or 10 guys over the course of Firebirds hockey who we've truly seen, who I personally feel we've truly seen grow before our eyes, he would decidedly be one of them.
Yeah, most definitely. I'd put him probably in the top five that we've seen here, just in hockey sense, just the way you watch him play away from the puck. A lot of guys, you watch him play with the puck. A lot of guys are good with the puck. It's what do you do when you're away from the puck? How do you create space? How do you see that space? And Oscar's got that NHL mentality to him.
Let's segue to the rest of the Firebirds, and curious to get your thoughts. Love hearing your call for the games that I'm unable to attend, which are few. I try to be there for every game, but whether it be radio, whether it be TV, and we got to get you on the road eventually, Greg. Then you have to do all 72 games. I know that's going to cut into your tee sheet a little bit, but you're so good working with Evan on the broadcast. Birds, as mentioned earlier, 27, 18, and 5, fifth in a very tight and taut Pacific Division. It was a tough road trip, and they got some tough games coming up. Thus far, as we've now hit the 50 game threshold, how do you see the Birds? What's your assessment thus far?
Well, I thought leading up to Christmas, if they were 500, that they had a pretty good year. We knew they were going to be young, they were going to be inexperienced, and they were 5 or 6 games over 500 at Christmas time. So I thought that says a lot for the coaching. It says a lot for the kids. I mean, I believe we have 6 or 7 20-year-olds. So that tells you about how young they really are. But I'm looking forward to the final 20 because that's when everybody seems to put the gas pedal down. The play goes up, the intensity goes up. And from what I've seen and watched with the guys, I think they've got enough that they could make a nice push here.
Yeah, I see some of those things too. It's been a season, and we saw this a little bit last year when we also had fewer veterans and more youth. There is some 2 step forward, 1 step back moments. We saw that on the road trip against Bakersfield, which is a team that can score in bunches. But as we're getting to this point in the season and getting toward March, that was a game where we were up 3-0 and we ultimately lost 4-3. Came right back with a nice shutout victory over Colorado. But what are some specific things that you would like to see the Birds over these final 22 games of the regular season that you'd like to see them sharpen up?
Well, I think if you look at the schedule, I think we've only got half a dozen, maybe 7 games against teams that are below us in the standings. So you're going to see good competition all the way through. And I think to stay in that top 4 teams and get yourself a home playoff series, you're probably going to have to play 650 hockey against some good hockey clubs that have got some veteran players that have been to the playoffs before. So it's going to be a big push for the kids, but I'm looking forward to seeing how they react to it.
Yeah, just a few metrics, and I kind of saved these for our chat. The Birds are definitely finding ways to score, fifth in the entire AHL. They're tied for fifth with 170 goals. The special teams, by and large, have been pretty good. Power play, pardon me, right in the middle of the pack at 16th. The kill has started to get a little leaky over time, dropped down to 27th in the league, and the goals against 17th in the AHL, giving up 154. That number was kind of it was a little more bulbous for an early portion of the season when I feel there were some games that were getting away from him and some of the young defensemen specifically. I don't know. When you look at those metrics, what facets would you like to see improved upon? What would you like to see some of those numbers rise?
I think you'd like to see the defensive side of things get better. I mean, as it gets to playoff hockey, defense wins. And I think it's a pleasant surprise to see how capable they are at scoring. And I don't think at the start of the year anybody expected them to be in the top 5 or 6 teams in the American Hockey League in scoring. So that's kind of a nice bonus. But I think, yeah, they're young, and you can tell when they have leads sometimes that they're young. I think as they mature a little bit, they'll get that killer mentality where when you've got a lead, you put the foot on the gas pedal. If it's 3-0, you try and make it 5-0. And that's just part of youth growing up. I mean, I know when we were in Edmonton, we were always taught it gets to 3-0, you want to see it at 5. If it gets to 5, you want 7. You never took your foot off the gas pedal. And yeah, some of those games turned into 7-5 games or 8-4 games. But at the same time, you've always got that killer instinct. And when the Firebirds are playing their best hockey, I think their forecheck's hard. I think they're physical on the puck. They win all the little battles, and they're not turning pucks over at the blue lines. I think some of the time they get a little bit cute sometimes around the blue lines, and those are the ones that end up back in your end. Or if at the end of a shift, you give a puck away at your blue line, those are the ones that end up in the back of your net. So they've gotten better as the years gone along with that, and I expect that to still improve some more.
Yeah, I would agree. Sometimes getting the puck out of our zone, doing it with precision, doing it with a little more clarity, doing it with a little more assured sense. And this is where Oscar Fisker Molgaard, in my mind, you mentioned him away from the puck. I mean, as far as him with the puck on his stick, taking it through the neutral zone is where he really looks like one of the better players in the American League, as I see it. He's very confident taking it to the neutral zone. I like seeing with the stick on his puck in those moments. But the defenseman, there's a lot of youth, of course, coupled with the savvy vet and Gustav Olofsson. And in some of these fellas, I don't like to point out individuals or slight anybody. Sometimes there is a lack of physicality around the crease, or in the trapezoid, or sometimes digging in the back check. I don't know if you agree with that assessment, but sometimes when I see these games where we give up 3, 4 goals, I'm like, yeah, we got to play a little bit harder on the puck. We got to get a little bit more precise getting out of our zone.
Well, there's a little bit of fishing that goes on. I call it fishing when guys are reaching for pucks with their sticks instead of taking the man or tying up a stick. So there's been a little bit of fishing around the net sometimes in some of the tougher games, but it's also not a big defense. Yeah, it's young, but it's also not a very big defense either. So they've got to use body position. They've got to learn. They've gotten better over the course of the year of boxing guys out with just being in the way and allowing the goaltenders to find loose pucks and such. And again, part of that is just youth. I think a junior, you can get away with it a little bit. At the pro level, you're not going to get away with it because now you're playing against men. And there's a lot of teams in our division that are big, heavy teams that create a lot of havoc in front of the net. So it's been a good learning experience for the young guys. And I think as we go forward, you're going to see them get better and better at boxing guys out and such. And it's something they're going to have to do to be successful.
Yeah, the biggest of those guys, probably on the back end, Caden Hamill, he was starting to grow into himself, and we saw some, not just the fighting highlights, but he's a very physical, very strong on the puck player. He's been out for about 2 months, so I feel like the Birds have missed his presence. I mean, as a netminder, as a Hall of Fame netminder over your, I think, 19 years in the NHL, Grant, were you talk to your defensemen a lot? And when you talk to them, were you talking nicely, or were you barking at them to do something different or do something better?
Oh, no, it's all about communication. Because if you can communicate with your defensemen and your forwards, it makes you better. I mean, when everybody's on the same page, the game seems to flow better. You're not making those mistakes. And our back end is young. Our goaltenders are young. So there's going to be some miscommunications. There's going to be a little bit of chaos sometimes. It's how do you sort it out? And the best way to sort that out is just with communication.
Yeah, we talked about some things that could maybe improve. You mentioned that, and I would totally agree with you. I didn't think that the Firebirds would be this prolific offensively. Certainly, what we saw from the first couple weeks of the season looked like a team that might need some help in the scoring area. But they're continuing to do it despite the promotions of Ben Myers and Jacob Melanson. Yes, we have had Yanni Newman back, But who are some guys that you think have really progressed, that have impressed you throughout the year, that we've seen grow before our eyes?
Well, I think Jagger Fergus has taken some big steps this year. I think Logan Morrison's having a phenomenal year. He could have easily been an all-star this year. He's taken some great steps. I think you look at a guy like Leighton Rhodes starting to make some big steps and starting to figure out how fast he really is and
Yeah.
is able to use that. I thought Ian McKinnon, that fourth line with McKinnon, Novak, and whoever else they put out with them, I thought they brought the energy for about 10 or 12 games in games where we were searching for that energy. They've chipped in with some points, so they're getting it through the lineup. And if you look at the forward group, they're going to have to do it that way. You're going to have some games where your third and fourth lines are going to have to contribute. Your top line can't do it all, and they're getting some nice distribution through all four lines.
Yeah. Youngster Tyson Jugnoth is interesting in that he, as advertised, I mean, he is a beautiful skater. He's got very soft hands. In the 3-on-3 overtime, he looks to me like he's always the most skilled player on the ice in that format. I feel very confident when we get to the overtime and see that he's got the stick on his puck. It's kind of a new breed, a new style of defenseman. We watched the Minnesota Wilds, and I'm proud to say that the Minnesota Wild have Quinn Hughes, but he kind of looks like a younger version of a Quinn Hughes style defenseman to
He's got a little Paul Coffey in him. I
me.
mean, he's going to make some phenomenal plays. He's going to make some plays that turn coaches gray. But at the same time, you can see the immense talent that he has and the feel for the game that he has. So, yeah, there's going to be some growing pains, but that's just because he has so much talent where he feels like he can beat a guy one-on-one, which sometimes you're the last guy back. Maybe it's not the best opportunity to beat somebody, but 9 times out of 10, he does it. And it's fun to watch. It's also interesting to watch if you're coaching.
We could use interesting, or we could probably implement some other words there if you want.
You can
Friends,
always add other words.
folks, you're tuning in to the Desert Suns Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. My guest is Hockey Hall of Famer and Firebirds TV/radio analyst Grant Fuhr. We kind of referenced the goalies. It's been an interesting season in the between the pipes for the Firebirds, Grant. Look, Nike Coco, he doesn't turn 21 or 22 rather until next month. So the guy is still a kid. I mean, he had such a phenomenal season last year. The record of 20, 10, and 2. Goals against very low, 2.26. Save percentage very high, 0.913. Those latter two metrics are both good for 10th in the entire American Hockey League. And this season, look, there's been some different defensemen out there in front of him. He's dealt with some injuries. Some people call it the sophomore slump. He still looks good and as agile as ever from what we saw last year. He is very, very quick. He's a big kid that can, for his size, he can really move. But it's been a bit of a tough year. I mean, you look at the goals against. It's just, and I know the numbers don't tell the whole tale, but goals against of 3.26, that's pretty gaudy, man.
Yeah, I mean, part of that is having a young defense in front of you. Part of it's your second year. Everybody knows what you're all about. For a goaltender, your second year is your hardest year because everybody's got a book on you now, where you're still in the learning phase. So you throw a young defenseman out in front of them. We struggled at the start of the year a little bit keeping pucks out of our net for as much as we were scoring. And yeah, the numbers aren't as pretty as they could be, but you also look at the games where he's made some saves towards the end of games that we've had to have to win some games. And I look at that, there's no metric for it, which is the only downfall of having all the analytics. I look at, can you make a save when we need a save to change a hockey game? And he's been very good at that. Victor Osman's been very good at that. He's gotten better as the year's gone along and he's got more time to play. So I think both guys are coming up with some saves that the team needs to change the momentum in games. Like a couple of home games ago, Victor made a huge stop in a game that we were down 2-0. Turns around, we come back, win the hockey game.
Yeah.
Well, that save changes the whole momentum of the hockey game. You go down 3-0, you're pretty much dead and buried. So they're getting timely saves. And I look at that as their development's getting better and better. They're making the timely saves. The numbers kind of put a little bit of a hidden veil over how good they've actually played.
And I would agree. And I appreciate you saying that because, yeah, not everything is a metric. And that's the value of going to, all of, if not most of these games, is that you get a greater appreciation for player performance in the moment, in those most important moments. And that's not something that you're going to find necessarily on a piece of paper or something that you're going to find on a leaderboard. Do you feel in any particular respect? And look, Nikkei has just came back. He was out since the middle of January, but before he got injured, was there anything in particular that you thought he has improved on since what was a sterling rookie year last year?
I think his positioning has gotten better. I think the way he's positioned, the way he's reading the game, he's learned to read the game in the smaller ice surface. Everything happens a little bit faster. He's learned to read the game. I look at his body language, and his body language has been good. And that's a telltale sign of whether a guy feels like he's struggling or whether he's playing with a lot of confidence is the body language. Yeah, he gets frustrated with the guys sometimes, which I'm sure happens a lot, but it's how do you handle it? And you look at his body language, it's positive. He goes to the bench. It's all positive around the bench during the breaks and such. So his development strides are putting him on a pretty good trajectory to play in the National Hockey League.
I was going to say, and look, it's not most or it's not typical to have an NHL goalie at 22 years old. I mean, a lot of guys are in their mid 20s when they're become a regular between the NHL pipes. So it's just the position. It's one of the toughest sports positions in the world, and it just takes time. But I still see him from the skill set that we viewed from Nikkei Koko. He's undoubtedly an NHL prospect. Do you agree with that?
Oh, most definitely. The skill set's definitely there. And again, goalies develop at different times, different ages. Some are like I was lucky enough, I managed to play at 18, but I know a lot of guys that didn't get their chance till 27, 28. So it all depends on how they develop, how they see the game, the organization, how they treat them, how they're geared towards. And you look at Joey. Joey didn't get into the National Hockey League till what, 27?
You're 27, yeah.
So you look at his development, a couple of years with the Firebirds, you could see the trajectory going. You see Nikkei on that same trajectory, which I think a lot of it is good coaching, but a lot of it is raw talent as well. They're both very talented, and you see the talent comes out. It's a matter of just learning the game and getting comfortable in the North American game form.
Talking about that coaching, we of course, rather have a new goalie coach with the Firebirds this year, Colin Zulianello. He had forever been the goaltender coach. He got the promotion up to Seattle in the NHL. Vince Stiletti, have you noticed anything different that Vince is doing, working with what has been a trio of goaltenders for the
No, I
Birds
think
this
Vince has
year?
done a phenomenal job. You look at Nikkei's growth, you look at Victor's growth. Jack LaFontaine comes in here. He was phenomenal. Another guy that's a little older, 27, 28, where all of a sudden he's finding his groove now. So I think if you look at Seattle's organization, you've got 6 goalies that are all very capable of playing. And it's nice to have depth like that. Right? Everybody says, well, you got to have 1 or 2. Well, if you got 6, you're much better off. You're not one shot away from a disaster. So I think going down the line, future wise or trade deadline wise, you've got options, which is nice to have.
We mentioned Jack LaFontaine, and I did want to ask you about him. Recent guest on this program. He joined me last month. I mean, he was phenomenal, man, and it feels like to me the guy's in a tough spot. He's 28 years old. Look, he appeared in 5 games for the Birds this year in spot starts. His record was 4-0. So I think one of those games he spelled somebody. Goals against was sub 2, and then just totally passed the eye test. I mean, he looked great, and the guy. It's tough to see a guy with that kind of success then go back to the ECHL where he was leading that league in wins. What do you think when you see a goalie like that? That's just kind of looking for a great opportunity and seemingly earning his way toward that.
Oh, he's definitely earned it. There's no question about it. But again, you're in that numbers game where you've got 2 guys that are younger that they want to see have ice time. And instead of sitting around here and not playing, it's probably better for him to be playing in Kansas City. You look at Edmonton. They just, who did they just send down? They sent down, can't think of his name off the top of my head, in Bakersfield,
Yeah.
who was 9-2 for him. And they just sent him back to the East Coast League. Connor Ingram, or not
Thank
Ingram.
you.
Can't think of the guy's name now, but he was phenomenal. They just sent him down to the East Coast League for the same purpose. They want him playing games. So development wise, you're better off playing games. Does it feel like a demotion? Yeah, it does. But you take a look at an organization, there's basically 6 spots. It's the only job in hockey where there's, through a full organization, there's only 6 spots for you. So the fact that you need somewhere to play, and the fact that he's getting to play in Kansas City, and he's been phenomenal. I forget what his record is, like 22-3 or something.
Yeah, he still leads that league and wins despite being here for like a month.
Yeah, so that just tells you how good a year he's having and how much he's gotten better from last year. Every year he seems to improve.
I would agree, and I know that there are and Victor Osman, as you pointed out, he has been solid and at times definitely better than just a solid, sound, serviceable goalie. I mean, he's had some really good games. He's also had some ups and downs across the course of the season. And I know there's some organizational reasons, some developmental reasons why certain guys are going to get a chance to play while others are not. But man, over the course of the run before Nike Coco just returned while the Birds were away last week, I would have liked to have seen a little more Jack LaFontaine in the net. I'd like to see him just get a few more starts in there. Were you feeling that too?
You know what? You always want to see everybody get an opportunity.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing. But then you look at the big picture. You look at draft picks, they're going to get a little longer look than somebody that's just signed. And you see that through forwards, you see it through defense, you see it through goaltending especially. And the younger guys will get more development time where you still want to have a veteran that can step in and play. And Jack's that veteran guy that if you have an issue, fills in fabulously. And I love his attitude towards it. He doesn't let it bother him. He just goes out and plays. And that's the kind of guy you want to have in your organization.
Yeah, totally. And when he was on the show and we talked about that very thing, he was in no way dispirited. He was very grateful and appreciative for these opportunities and was undoubtedly making the most of them. A couple more for you today, Grant. Most recent guest was our former and our inaugural head coach, Dan Bilesma. Had an opportunity to look at the Firebirds from a lens of when he was here and now. You, of course, have been with the organization since the get. How do you feel that over the course of 4 years, the Firebirds have continued to integrate themselves to be part of the Coachella Valley?
I think they're doing a pretty good job of it. I mean, obviously, you want to get better every year. I think that's the great thing is your first 3 years, you're kind of the shiny new object. So when that wears off, you've got to be a part of the community. And I think the Firebirds are doing a good job right now of starting to reach out to all the different aspects of the community here. It's a very diverse community here. And when you've got the 9 cities, you kind of have to have your fingerprint in all 9 cities. So I think they're doing a better job of it. It's a good way of looking at it, or a more visible job. But they've done a good job all the way along, but maybe not as visible as they've been here the last year or two. And I think that's going to grow as things go along. Obviously, as the organization matures, then you want to be a part of the community because that's your future fan base, especially in a non-traditional market.
I was going to say, and that's the phrase, I'm going to steal it from you. I mean, taken from your own experience, you coached in a non-traditional market when you were the goalie coach for Phoenix for it was either 4 or 5 years. And what did you observe? Obviously, that franchise is no more. They've moved on to start a different franchise with Utah. But what did you observe about that non-traditional hockey market and not just courting people to come like, hey, let's go to one game, but let's become like season ticket holder type fans. We're like farming fans. We're farming this base of fanship and fanhood. What did you observe from being in Phoenix that maybe you're seeing some parallels or some differences here?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you've got to get people in the building. When you're a non-traditional market, you're going to have people that will watch it on TV, and TV doesn't do hockey justice. You want them in the building, whether it be giving kids tickets, whether it's I think they're doing an Olympic kind of a deal now where it's 2026 for a ticket, that sort of thing. You've got to do different things to grow the organization. And a lot of that is getting people in the building so they can fall in love with the game. And then also you've got to sell the point that you can't fall in love with the players. You have to fall in love with the team because at the American League level, the turnover is going to be big every year.
Yeah, it's such a valid point, and it is interesting to see the sweaters from the players of yore, and those are still some of the most beloved players that we've seen come through here. But also those are matched with players of present that we've come to enjoy and respect, and at some point they too will be gone. And in kind of a backward sense, yes, we're selfish. We love seeing them play here, but we also want them to have that opportunity to play at the NHL level. Couple things that you referenced about what the Firebirds have done. I want to spend just a few minutes on this because I feel like the team has recognized that, yeah, the shiny new object, we're now in year 4, and that's just going to go away for basically any. You're not going to make it to the Calder Cup Finals every year. So whatever the team, whatever the market, you got to get proactive and creative and find opportunities, find affordable ways to get fans in the building. For instance, next year the Firebirds they unveiled 25% food and beverage discount. That'll be for next year for season ticket members. They've reduced the parking
$10
for every home
parking for
game.
season ticket holders.
Yeah, $10. Season ticket holders get the playoff priority. They also made some of the concessions for this season more affordable, put together some packages for families that I thought were a good idea. Are you seeing some of these things that are working and are bringing in people that maybe haven't been to Acrisure Arena for a year, or maybe people that have never been?
Yeah, I think you're starting to see some growth in that. I mean, you look at the unfortunate part that we've lost a lot of Canadians this year. Hey,
Yeah,
there's 2 or 3 thousand fans that you could bank on every year. And yeah, we got spoiled the first couple of years going to the final. Unfortunately, that doesn't normally happen where you roll to the final right away. But it's great when you're trying to get a new franchise started that you get to go to the finals. But now you've got to find a way to keep people in the building. You want to keep people being fans of the team. So part of that's the players going out into the community so that people get to know the players a little bit, get to know the organization a little bit, and then they fall in love with the organization. And once that happens, then you're creating your local fan base. And for the organization to be successful, you have to have that local fan base. You're always going to have people that come in from out of town that are hockey fans. But how do you create the local fan base? Well, you got to get out in the schools. I know the first couple of years we were out doing ball hockey clinics. I think a couple of the schools put it in their gym curriculum where they were playing ball hockey. So that's how you create your local fans. Kids that have maybe never played hockey, all of a sudden get a chance to play ball hockey. Well, now you've played ball hockey. Now maybe you want to get them out skating. Well, once they go to a hockey game, all of a sudden they find a love for that. Now the game progresses. Now I can skate. Maybe I can play hockey. So you're starting to see the junior Firebirds program grow a little bit. It's just a natural progression, but that's how you're going to be successful in the long term.
yeah, and I agree. And some people say, well, I go on like a Wednesday night, and maybe the crowd isn't what it looked like 2 years ago. Well, look, it's a Wednesday night, and I do appreciate and respect what the team did by moving those weeknight games from 7 to 6:30. Do you think that's been effective?
I think it's a start. I mean, you'd have to look at it at the end of the year to see what the different metric is. Does 6:30 make a difference from 7, or does it make it harder? Because all of a sudden you got people just getting off work that have to race to the rink. So that's something that they'll probably take a look at the end of the day. I like the 3 o'clock on Sundays. I think that's
Yeah.
great for families. I think 6 o'clock on a Saturday is great for families. So they've done a good job of that. I think they've done a good job of getting a lot of weekend games. And it doesn't matter what market you're in, unless you're somewhere in Canada. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are usually not great days for drawing fans. In Canada, it's kind of an automatic given. Whereas you get in a non-traditional market, it's a weekday market, then it's a little harder to draw fans, but they've done a good job with the $5 beer specials and some discounts on foods just to get people in the building. And I think you're seeing a little bit of growth out of that. When you get 5 or 6 thousand on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, you've obviously done something right.
Yeah, and over the course of this fourth season, attendance average is a shade over 6,700. And look, man, there are 23 AHL teams that would love to have that average for a season attendance. So by and large, I feel that it's strong. That fan base that you referenced, it's like any given night. I don't care if it's the Sunday three. I don't care if it's 6:30. You're still going to have 6,000 fans in that building, and there are 2/3 of the American Hockey League that would love to have those numbers.
Oh, no question. I think the organization from the get-go has been fabulous about getting people in the building. And I forget what we averaged our first year. It was right up around 8,700 or something like
Yeah.
that. you're going to have a natural fall off after 3 years. It's okay. How do I retain those people? Well, we're averaging, what'd you say, 6,700 right now. If your Canadians are here, all of a sudden you're at 8,700. So the local market, I think, has bought into it very well, which is why you're up around that 6,700 number. And I think once you get a few of the Canadians back down and such, the numbers are going to go back up, but you've still got to keep it entertaining for the fans, keep it affordable for the fans. And I think that the organization as a whole realizes that, and they're making adjustments on the fly, which is what you have to do.
Well, we certainly we like having this Canadian here today, and we'd like to have those Canadian visitors back in the desert. Grant, always a pleasure. So appreciative of your time, sir. We look forward to your calls in the Firebirds home stretch of season 4.
Always my pleasure, Judd.
All right, Firebirds friends, wrapping up this episode as we are wont to do, epilogue fashion, with the Desert Shootout segment. Enjoyed that conversation with Grant Fuhr. We now segue to a gentleman that's become something of a podcast maven. He's on podcasts here, he's on podcasts in Seattle talking about the Firebirds. So we get him while we can because he's in high demand. We welcome back Desert Sun reporter Andrew John to the Desert Sun's Fire and Ice podcast, presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. Hello, Andrew.
Hey, Judd. Glad to be back.
Always a pleasure, my friend. The segment where we duel with pens in lieu of pucks. 5 questions, rapid fire fashion, shootout style. We set them up, we knock them down. Listeners and, of course, Andrew John should now be wrote on these 5 questions as we inch our way toward the home stretch of the season in March. Question 1. What are you most impressed by of late, Andrew?
You know, I had been really impressed with the defense of this group. I wrote about this a couple weeks ago before, the Firebirds went on a road trip where they were getting it done defensively, only allowing 2.1 goals over like the last 15 games. And then only 1.4 of those goals were 5-on-5 action. That's a really good number for a group playing without their primary goaltender with Nikkei Coco out. And now, they got Coco back on this last road trip. So that'll see how they're going forward. They did have a shutout in Victor Osman's last game, which was like their 3rd shutout in the last month. That's something. Defensively has been good. Their last game was not great defensively, but it's one game, and we'll move forward from there.
Yeah, I'd quickly add, as I said to Grant Fuhr, that we were enjoying the rise of the Caden Hamill experience. He's now been out for a couple months. Team is always cagey about the injuries and the availability, but it'd be nice to get him back in the lineup as we hit this final 20.
It's been nice also with just some of the defensive young guys, the young defensive rookies have really kind of gone through a maturing process, and I think are playing much better than they were earlier in the season.
Question 2 of 5. We skate on. Fill in the blank, Andrew John. Yes, the Birds have been away on the road for a week. They're coming back this week for games on Thursday, Friday. That offered. What's your most memorable moment of late?
Yeah, I think for me, the most memorable moment was in their January 13th win, where, it was basically, again, it was a 6-1 win against the Roadrunners. It was kind of like their most complete performance of the season that I've seen, where they just allowed the 1 goal, didn't really ever feel like they were threatened, and to get 6 goals from 6 different guys was really something. So to me, that's been the most memorable moment recently, where they just put a complete performance together. And we've seen some really good results since then. And I think that there's a lot to build on there.
Just a clarification, because I probably screwed up 18 times already on this show, but February 13th, was that against
Yeah.
the Road? Okay.
Yeah.
And you're right, man. You and I kind of looked at each other and we sat back in that game. We're like, ooh, finally, like a whooping. We can just sit back, a stress-free game.
Yeah, I mean, you look at those first couple of seasons where there were a lot of like lopsided wins. Last couple years, they've really had to fight for the wins, and to their credit, they've been getting them, more than they've lost them. But definitely, this was one of those few games where we kind of like sat back and weren't quite on the edge of the seat.
Line change as we move on to question 3 of 5. Again, the Birds have been on the road of late, but Andrew has written a lot of great articles at desertsun.com, both during, preceding, and surely following the stretch. All that offered. The best quote that you've heard from a Firebirds member or coach in recent weeks, Andrew?
Yeah, thought this was kind of indicative of what we were talking about earlier about the defense getting it done. And one of the things that Derek Laxtel had mentioned is he said that guys are starting to figure out that if you defend well and you get the puck back, you'll get rewarded. That was kind of what we saw. They're playing much better defense, transitioning into a better offense, I think. And guys are getting more opportunities. The guys even mentioned this in the post game at the last home game where they talked about getting turnovers was resulting in offensive opportunities that they weren't getting earlier in the season. So that's really been fun to see. And I think that was probably the best quote and is kind of indicative of where they are as a team.
Yeah, it's interesting how, the hockey guys are always looking at it through a little bit different lens than the media guys, but it does echo very much what Grant Fuhr said in our previous visit about securing that puck in our zone a little bit better and getting it out, getting it through the blue line, getting it past into the neutral zone action. So it's kind of cool to see how those, the coach and the Hall of Famer, those views do balance out. Andrew, you referenced the most recent game. That would be a nice choice for the next question, 4 of 5. Feel free to use it again or something different if you prefer. But your biggest concern with the Firebirds right now?
I think just the biggest concern is kind of where do they go from here in terms of some of the lineups that they've had. I know also in the net where you had such good stability from Victor Osman. Do you move away from him? I would imagine Coco is their guy, so you play him more regularly, right? That's the conventional wisdom. But there's also a transition when you're reworking a guy back into the lineup, and guys are comfortable with Osman, as I'm sure they're comfortable with Coco, but there's going to be, I think, an initial adjustment period. So my concern or my question is, how do they balance that? Do they just say, "Hey, Coco's our guy. He's going to play every game except for back-to-backs," or is Osman going to be kind of the guy who's going to maybe get a start every third game, because he's really earned it? So those are questions, maybe even a little bit of a concern that I think that the coaching staff's going to have to sort out.
Yeah, and we're going to see that play out in real time. Birds have had a bunch of days off, 3, 4, 5, I think, between games now and coming back. I trust we'll see Coco against
Mhm.
Henderson on Thursday, but then the tight wraparound to Saturday. I think we would anticipate seeing Victor Osman in net for that game.
Yep.
So we'll see how it plays out, but I think that you're right. How that balance for the home stretch of the season is going to be interesting. Set them up, knock them down. I feel like I'm giving you a bit of a softball at this point, but not necessarily because there are some good choices, more than a couple even, for what's cracking. Next member of the Firebirds that's going to get called up to the National Hockey League.
So I think this one is, for me, it's a clear one, and I'm going to go Yanni Newman, which some people have been critical of him in certain moments this season, but he scored a goal in 4 of the last 5 games. And he's been pretty consistent with his offense since returning to the Firebirds in January. So, or I guess it was December 31st was the first game. So, you know, he's been really solid. And, we talked about being on the Kraken pod. That was one of the questions was, is this a guy who's going to get a chance this season again with the Kraken? And there's still definitely work to be done in his game. But in terms of his production with the Firebirds since he's been back here, it's undeniable. And I think that he's a guy who deserves to get another shot if that comes about this season or next.
Yeah, he's definitely getting his money's worth in this return to the AHL. 15 goals, 5 assists. That my Minnesota math says that's 20 points in 22 games. And you
Mhm.
mentioned that he's been especially hot of late, getting the puck in the back of
Yeah.
the net. They asked you a
Right.
lot on that podcast about Yanni Newman. Very interested in the young Finn. Curious about his progress. What we're seeing here. It's a player that you and I have talked about this year, probably more than any other. For a big guy, a guy with an undoubted niche. But is he going to grow from that? And I feel like over the course of his time here, since New Year's Eve, we've seen pieces. But are we going to see him more flesh out to that 200-foot guy?
You're right, because that's really kind of the flaw right now is his complete game. We know he can score, got a heck of a shot, but there's obviously so many other parts of the game that need to be really developed, and I think he's still developing a lot of those areas. So uh, he's definitely doing well for the Firebirds, but I think there's still a lot of untapped potential there that they can see, that a lot of people can see in him that we still haven't quite seen yet.
Andrew John, we see him at Acrisure Arena. We read his words in the Desert Sun newspaper and online at desertsun.com. He dropped the L, so when you look up Andrew John, feel free omit the L in your Google machine search, even though your stuff will probably still pop up if someone puts in Andrew L. John. Nonetheless, dude, I know it's an active time for you and the Desert Sun newspaper. We got all manner of sports activity happening here in the peak of the peak season. And as said, you're a guy in high demand. Podcasts across the West Coast. Thanks for making the time for the Fire and Ice, man.
All right, thanks, Judd. Definitely see you out there.
See you at the barn, buddy. All right, Fire Spot. It's going to wrap it up for another episode of the Desert Suns Fire and Ice podcast, presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. So appreciative of your time, your interest, your ears, your ongoing support of this endeavor. A lot of downloads of late. Happy and proud to say the most recent of which, that Dan Bilesma episode, as expected. That one did pretty darn well. The Desert Sun, a newspaper partner in crime for this fourth season of Firebirds hockey. Be sure to follow all of their coverage on and off the ice at desertsun.com. Appreciate a visit with Andrew John in this episode's Desert Shootout segment. Be sure to follow Andrew's Firebirds coverage all season long, and as we eventually get into the second season of AHL hockey, by buying a Desert Sun newspaper, following on the wealth of socials, sporting, and beyond, or again, have to visit to desertsun.com. Desert Willow Golf Resort, and you know what? That's a place where Grant Fuhr likes to play, by the way. Get your tee times online at desertwillow.com. Mountain View and Firecliff courses respectively, and also home to the excellent and on-site Home Desert Golf Academy for all your swing instruction and tutelage needs. You know I love the good putt-to-puck segue. Go tee it up or take a lesson over at DW. Skate it on down. It's about 1.5 miles away from the Birds' home ice of Acrisure Arena. You go cook, hang a right on Varner, bang, you're there. You play Desert Willow in the day, and then you take in a Birds game in the early evening. That's a way to make it a great desert day. I referenced Grant Fuhr. Didn't mean to bury my gratitude, thanks, and appreciation for Grant's time. Always a pleasure to visit with the Hall of Famer. Thank you so much, Grant. Additional gratitude, of course, goes to the sponsor of the Firebirds Freeze Frame segment. That be both the 29 Palms Beer Company and the Ground Squirrel up in downtown 29 Palms. Those respectively and collectively prove your high desert hockey homes. Again, thank you everybody so much for tuning in, for your continued support of this endeavor. We will see you this Thursday night back at Acrisure Arena as the Birds face off. 6:30 p.m. start versus the Henderson Silver Knights, and then turn it right around for a home game this Saturday night at home. 6 p.m. puck drop versus the Bakersfield Condor. Appreciate you tuning in. We will see you this week for a double dip, a couple times at Acrisure Arena. And until then, friends, be well.